What we're going to cover today, and just welcome everybody again to our Live Longer Better in Coventry, Solihull, Warwickshire webinar. So my name's Jordan. I'm a partnership manager here at Think Active, and I kind of been activating a lot of this Live Longer Better work on our behalf. For those that don't know, Think Active, we're an active partnership. We're one of 43 around the country, and our role is in some ways a bit like Sport England local, if you will, in terms of helping create conditions locally for people to be physically active. So the Live Longer Better revolution is really a key part of what we've done over the last kind of 12 to 18 months and definitely a key part of moving forward. In terms of housekeeping, if you could keep muted while the presentations are ongoing, there will be time for a Q&A. If things do come up during the meeting and you want to ask questions, please just use the chat function. I've got myself, Rhiannon and Rosie and Jen from Think Active here kind of monitoring that as well. So don't be shy to ask questions, and I'm sure people will be more than happy to answer them. What we're going to go through today is really lucky to have Samuel Gray on the call to talk us through the Live Longer Better revolution. Some of you may have attended our conference back in March where he spoke so well, and we're really pleased that he can join us today to talk about that. We're then going to hear from the brilliant team at CV Life, and Wendy and Steve, I think, are on the call to talk us through their Coventry Moves program and some really cool examples about how we can help people be active through their life course. We will then introduce the Think Active Live Longer Better Fund, which we've launched this week, and then have a slot for questions, additional questions at the end. So that's where we're going to go. Muir, did you want to share your screen?
Well, great to join you. And I'd like you to imagine now you're sitting in a bridge club or a bowls club or a WI or a mosque, and I'm going to give you the Facts of Life 2.0. But what we want is probably 300 of you in your population able to give this. And we've got a training program, a learning program for this. Okay, so you might be your grandparents or your parents, but I want you now just to think for 20 seconds hard. You're in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, or 90s. You've got a few health problems, and here comes this doctor to tell you the facts of life. Ladies and gentlemen, there are only two phases in life. There's a phase of growth and development, a turning point, and then it's a downhill all the way. But don't despair, there's much that can be done. Because the aging process is not a cause of major problems until the 90s. It does affect your maximum level of ability, your maximum pulse rate, for example, and your resilience, your ability to recover to change in temperature or for example, a trip or stumble, or lockdown. You need a bit of luck, but aging is not the problem. There are three other things taking place. And the first of these is loss of fitness. Now, for many people, the turning point occurs about the early 20s when they get their first job. And from then on, a fitness gap opens up that gets steadily wider. And that's not because of their lifestyle, it's because of the modern environment. We haven't evolved to live in a world in which we were inactive most of the time, and there were calories everywhere we looked. Our genes have been selected to be very good for running about and putting on fat quickly. So there's a fitness gap. And fitness is physical and mental. Now, what are the effects of fitness? Well, one is the maximum rate of activity decreases. And secondly, the ability to recover is reduced. Resilience is lost. So you see, that's the same as aging, which is why the medical profession has confused loss of fitness and aging until very recently. And there are four aspects of fitness: strength, stamina, suppleness, and skill. There's actually a fifth aspect of fitness beginning with the letter S. Can any of you think what it is, I wonder? It's psychological. That's the fifth aspect. And I don't like the word physical activity. We always talk about activity: physical, cognitive, and emotional. So here's a modern environment. Look at this chap here. And he's even having lunch at his desk. Let's give him some credit. He's got something green in his desk. But look at the cars outside and the computer and the keyboard. This is the modern environment. The good news is that at any age, you can close the fitness gap. The next process that affects us is disease. And again, most diseases are due to the modern environment. Type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, stroke, these are modern diseases. You need a bit of luck to avoid Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, But remember, Alzheimer's is only one of the causes of dementia. So what happens after the disease comes on is that the best possible rate of decline goes down faster. So I had a heart attack 11 years ago, lost a chunk of heart muscle. So my ability is not the same as it was. But what we also see is the fitness gap gets wider faster after the onset of disease. And it may be the loss of fitness that means you drop below the line. That's a name I've come up with about the level of ability you need to get to the toilet in time. After that, game over, social care. Now, why does the fitness gap get wider faster? Well, it's not only due to the disease process, it's due to the actions of other people who take even more activity away from you. The son who turns up to see his mum having driven down from Newcastle, and mum says, oh, she's finding a struggle getting to the groceries shop. The son's immediate response is Ocado. Instead of helping mother recover the ability, encourage her, keep her going, make sure she doesn't fall. If necessary, buy her a nice walking stick. All these things can be done. Because the good news is that at any age, no matter how many conditions you've got, you can close the fitness gap. And the evidence is now very strong. And here's a big report from the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges. Exercise, the miracle cure. I never thought I'd see that. Exercise, the miracle cure. And then another very important report, consensus statement came out that benefits outweigh risks. Benefits outweigh risks. The biggest risk is inactivity. So that means you've got to think in a different way, because the third process that affects us is negative thinking. And too many people, of course, are also affected by other social factors, of which deprivation is the most important. So, ladies and gentlemen of the Bridge Club, the Bowls Club, or the Mosque, or the WI, I know you all know about the Mediterranean diet, but it's an interesting new agenda. The first point is get even fitter. So every year, do even more. And every diagnosis, do even more. Secondly, do even more for other people. Strengthen your sense of purpose, and I'll come back to that. And you can reduce your risk of dementia, even though Alzheimer's can't be prevented. To reduce your risk of dementia, we summarize this in a little book. Keep your brain tissue healthy, keep the arteries into the brain healthy, and increase your engagement with other people. Positivity and purpose. Keep challenging your brain. Thank you very much. And I'd now like you to go to your next door neighbor and give them this key message, that what happens is, as we live longer is due to three processes other than aging: loss of fitness, disease complicated by accelerated loss of fitness, and social pressures. Okay, let's just now come back to think of your day job. What are we trying to do with Live Longer Better? Well, the first aim is to increase health span, not really the lifespan, but health span, and reduce the difference between the most deprived and the least deprived. And these were the shocking figures in the Chief Medical Officer's report published just on the 10th of November, comparing the most deprived to the least deprived. And it's not just life expectancy, you can see, it's 26.4 years in poor health compared to 15.6 years. The second aim is to help people feel better now. And we can reduce the risk of dementia, falls, disability, and frailty. And we could also reduce the need for health and social care in the short term, because the person who becomes fitter and has more resilience is better able to cope, not only with a trip or stumble, but with a chest infection, for example. So the use of hospital services by people who've lost condition is shown in the top line. Whereas if you've kept well, you're much more likely to have a pattern of your last 3 years like the bottom line. It will make a huge difference to hospitals. How are we going to achieve these aims? It's not by yet another reorganization of the structure of health and social care. And I've had 20 in my life, most of which have made no difference at all. This is the century of the system and the network. Systems are essential for complex problems, sometimes called a complex adaptive system. It's a set of activities with a common aim, and I've described the aim, and a common set of objectives. And here are the objectives. Obviously, the active partnership can't deal with all of them, but the way it's brought all you people together, the people on this workshop are the people we need to work together in a way I'll describe in a minute. So here are the objectives, not an order of priority, but you can see here, reduce the risk of and delay or prevent dementia. to support carers better. And the one at the bottom, we need to have a discussion on this in every bridge club, bowls club, mosque and WI. Just start talking about it. So here are the objectives. The Chief Medical Officer's report was published on the 10th of November. Poor chap, he's getting grilling at the moment, as you've probably seen in the COVID inquiry. So I'm not expecting a response from his office. I've written saying what a good report it is. But here are this is his executive summary of 266 pages. And you'll be getting these, this is all free in the web, of course, but it's a huge report. And it might be better just to look at these bullet points from the executive summary. Ill health and disability is not inevitable. Rural areas is where the growth is, and the coastal areas. But deprivation is in the city areas too, and I know Coventry quite well over the years. Adapt the environment, delay disease, think about frailty, mental health. And then that fascinating one at the third from the bottom, improving quality of life in older age sometimes means less medicine, not more. And one of the things we'd like to do is to work with primary care networks and give primary care networks the power to switch money from drug prescribing to prescribing social and physical activities. And there's evidence there's plenty of scope for that. And one of the reasons GPs do prescribe drugs is because at the moment, until social prescribing came along, they don't have an alternative. So I think social prescribing is of vital importance. So how do we do this? As I said, we don't need another reorganization. We need a network. And I'm looking at the network where I'm looking at you guys. And what we're doing now is complementing the local network with a digital network. And I discussed this when I came up in March, and I'd really like to discuss it with social prescribing and the primary care networks, and of course all the agencies, including Age UK. So here's our digital network. It's a digital therapeutic community. Of course, only about 70% of people who are 75 are online, but that's changing. And I was told 50 years ago that old people would never use the telephone, so it is changing. And furthermore, if we reach people who are online, give them knowledge and support, then the NHS and social services can concentrate on the people who are not online. I mean, I've had 3 visits to a practice nurse in the last 6 months. Well, I should be getting this digitally, so the practice nurse can go and see people at home. So the digital therapeutic community allows us to build on social prescribing with digital social prescribing. And this is a system called WISH. And it'd be very good to follow up with 1 or 2 primary care networks. WISH is a bit of software approved by NHS Digital that, for example, if your mother were diagnosed, lived in part of Coventry and were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, before the GP had finished typing the word metformin, a digital therapeutic activity prescription would be generated. It would say there's a centre near you, fitness centre near you, where one of the trainers has got the special training in type 2 diabetes. There's health walks in your part of Coventry. Here's Diabetes UK web link, and here are other opportunities. And this will also offer national digital opportunities so that people can take exercise every day. Obviously, getting out of home and doing it in groups is the best thing, but you need exercise every day. Strength, stamina, suppleness, skill, and psychology. So here's what the prescription will look like. I'm just finishing the 2nd edition of my little book, The Walking Cure, and I'd like to do a version of it for Coventry and a version for Warwickshire. And I use the Active 10 app every day. I've done 23 minutes of brisk walking today, and I'll do 33. I added on 3 more minutes as I get older. This is what I've had from the NHS in the last year in terms of my pills. I'm on 6 pills a day. And the next PowerPoint shows what I've received about diet, exercise. Am I feeling depressed? Am I anxious in the last 11 years? Don't adjust your screens. That's what I've received. And we need to reach particularly the people in level 1 in terms of patient activation. And they're often the ones who are not online. And they're often very heavy users of the health service. Now, finally, we need to change the culture and the new language. I don't like the word care. Let's call people enablers. And we've got an online learning program, and I think we're going to bid for money for about 500 of you to have the online learning so that you can go and give this talk, because this is what's happening as we live longer. This is what we can do about it. Finally, this issue of purpose. This is a paper in the Journal of the American Medical Association, first paper of the decade. This man's a very distinguished lab scientist. But look at the subtitle, isn't that fantastic? This is all evidence-based. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get together for the revolution. So thank you very much for coming to the meeting, and we're very pleased to take comments and questions. I don't know if there's time. What's the time looking like? Stop.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of time for questions, Muir. If anyone does have a question, if you use the raise hand function, then we could work around. Or if there's not, we can work through.
Any primary care networks here? Yes.
Rhys, you've got a question. You're from Age UK, aren't you, Rhys?
I am, yes. Yeah, definitely not primary care. More of an observation than anything. Muir, when you attended the conference in March, we were also there as well, and I
Yes.
remember making a comment, which was that as naturally as HK Coventry and Warwickshire, we are not an active partnership. We're by no means any experts in it. We leave that to people like Jordan. But what we've done since then is taken a bit more of an active approach towards movement and try to make sure that within all of our services, from counselling to befriending to dementia day opportunities, we incorporate it in some way. So I suppose what I'm saying here is I think everyone here should see it as their own responsibility, both from their organisation but also personally and professionally, to make sure that they are incorporating activity in whatever support they're offering to clients, customers, patients, etc.
Yes.
So just more of an observation for me, but I think we've certainly incorporated more within our services, and I'd encourage other people to do so as well. Yeah,
no, again, I think it's great. You'll be doing work on digital exclusion, Age UK.
Correct.
I mean, it's bound to change, but I think Age UK is really good at digital exclusion. And in Oxfordshire, they're doing social prescribing for about 8 PCNs. Any PCNs here? There's a link worker. I saw some link workers.
We have had a couple of apologies, Muir, from some of our primary care contacts who were due to jump on.
What would it's quite good to think about the takeaway message. Ingram, is that your second name, Ingram? I'm just picking on you. What's your takeaway message from this?
Well, can I first say we're actually on the coalface with this.
Yeah.
We were quite inspired by you earlier in the year, which led us to go on to Learning with Experts.
Yes.
Doing your course on there.
Yeah.
We're actually using this as a basis for running our lunch club.
Great.
And it really is excellent. And it's good to see some added things here as well, Muir, that were not in the original lot.
No.
It's very, very good.
I'm just getting power. I must have power.
Okay.
Yeah. Keep going.
We are actually trying very hard on the dietary front as well as mental attitude and everything else.
Yeah.
We're dealing with people over 50.
Yep.
And have the usual habitual problems of I'm 60, I'm old, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But we are actually making progress. We have now introduced, they do seated aerobics, standing aerobics if they can stand.
Yes.
We're doing dance and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So, and this is all stemming from when we saw you earlier in the year.
Yeah, but it was young people like you, Brian, who took it up. You see, so we need young people involved. We need to go intergenerational.
I'm glad you recognise that.
Well, look, let me make. We'd like to do maybe get some interviews from your group. But what we do now is identify every lunch club in Coventry and Warwickshire and say, well, let's spread it. And it's also just thinking with your lunch club, could we give them some purpose? Could they raise money for the local wildlife trust, for example?
Well,
A sense of purpose, I think, is very
Yep.
important, and then getting different lunch clubs to compete with one another. That's what I'm keen to
Yep.
do, to get Coventry to compete with Warwick. That would be bloody
Yep.
good, wouldn't it?
Well, they have actually adopted orphans in Africa.
Great.
And, yeah, so that is good.
That's
and they're helping
terrific.
to put them through school and such like.
Yes.
So yes, we're fighting it on several fronts. The problem is being a little bit short-handed. It's just my wife and myself that are
Yes.
really pushing this. And
But the one thing, Brian, is you can be sure about is you're dramatically reducing your risk of dementia. The more challenging the life you lead, the better. So you won't be getting paid for this, and I know you're not doing it for your own well-being. But the evidence is very strong that firstly, being a volunteer, and secondly, organising voluntary activities is very good for you.
Oh, I find it absolutely fantastic. And yes, I'm very focused on what we do now, which is good.
Yes.
So
great.
Yes, it's woken up my retirement. Let's put it that way.
But we're changing the name retirement to Renaissance. So you're having a good Renaissance.
I am indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, that's. But it is very, very good.
Yeah.
And as I say, we've been very much inspired by you earlier in the year. We came home fired up.
Good, good. I exploit people. I can find that.
Yes, I'll make a note of that.
Yes,
well.
watch yourself. Jen, what's your reaction? Jordan, you're maybe wanting time. Anyone else?
We'll hear Jen's reaction, and then we'll yeah.
Do you know what? So I've been kind of thinking about this because Jordan's recently been getting me more involved in our health programs, and one of your points that really resonated with me was actually focus on the digital inclusion stuff, because actually then, that hits a load of people. And then, obviously the digitally excluded people,
yes.
We can tackle that through face-to-face stuff. And it seems really obvious when you have it pointed out to you, but actually that's exactly right. And there is a lot of work going on around like digital inclusion and stuff like that, especially within the PCN. So that's kind of my takeaway point from that.
If you can find a couple of keen GPs or link workers, we just need, because a keen GP will take their primary care network with them. And we've got I'm not very good digitally, obviously, but the digital stuff is really elegant. This WISH system would automatically generates local and online activities to your diagnosis, your age, your postcode.
I think we'll pick some of those up after Muir. Brian, we'll pick that with you as well. We're really interested to learn more about your story. So after this, we'll certainly follow up with you. And thank you, Muir. That presentation always inspirational every time.
Great to see you.
To have you.
We know where you live. We know where you all live. So.
Yeah, he's not joking. And I think so. Just following from your then. So if I could hand over to Wendy and Steve, really, we're kind of really pleased to have both here from CV Live. I won't steal your thunder, either of you. So I'll hand over to you, really.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to do a presentation on our Coventry Moves project that we've delivered that really came about through isolation in care home settings through the COVID pandemic, and a pilot that we delivered at one of our care home settings in Coventry, Marsh House, and then evolved into a funded programme that we're working through at the moment with a view to making the activities that we deliver sustainably in care home settings and in communities. Wendy, my colleague, has led on the programme, and she's going to do the main part of the presentation for us. And then obviously we're happy to take any questions at the end. So we'll just work through the presentation for you.
Sorry, guys, we're just in the same room, so I was just unmuting and stuff. Okay, right, thanks for having us. I think Steve's obviously just set the background to it, but it obviously evolved out of Operation Shield, where we were lucky enough to be engaged in a volunteers programme supporting the older people with the food parcels and all of those things during that time. And during that time, we got to meet an awful lot of people that were isolated and having to stay at home, and you could certainly see the impact that was having on the older generation with being very inactive. Loneliness was a huge one, and the social isolation. From COVID, we then were able to look at running a bit of a pilot program, blank piece of paper. We're lucky enough to go into an independent living facility called Marsh House over in Coventry. And this was range of people ranging from 55 up to 95 with all different abilities. And we met with those and did a whole lot of research talking to them about how they were feeling, what they missed, how it impacted on them. And that's where it evolved from. What came out of that it was really, there was an absolute desperate need to rebuild confidence again, reduce the isolation and that newer way of living that they'd all sort of succumbed to, locking themselves in their flats, in their rooms, having lounges shut down was, had a massive impact on how people were feeling. And there was absolutely zero physical activity because they weren't even going anywhere or doing anything, not even walking down corridors. The pilot proved to be very successful. I think what came out of the pilot was just, I think, that trust, building confidence and starting to understand how we could utilise areas in the facility and also the people and the places, that the things they had within there. So we were lucky enough to secure just short of £194,000. And what that money has done is enabled us to deliver across 9 different care facilities, ranging from dementia homes to care homes to assisted living settings in Coventry. And then the project delivery has been delivered in a very different, lots of different ways. Initially, we've got about 25 partners engaged on the programme. There's been over 431 sessions delivered with over 5,000 engagements. And the way the project's been delivered is, as I said, we've talked about the care homes going into, so we run programmes that we work with the older people to understand what they want. It's not about us dropping things in there, albeit we have tried to make sure that we do bring new activities to the care homes also. But we've been really innovative. So we've looked at how, we've got break dancers delivering in these care homes. We've got hip hop dancers delivering. We're working alongside the culture side of things with the Herbert Art Gallery around reminiscence and also the Creative Cafe. The other element is the community activity. So whilst we understand there are older people that don't have the ability or the confidence to access activity in the community, there are also an awful lot of older people that are at that stage where they want to be active. So we launched a whole community activity programme ranging from the walking sports through to seated exercise, and as I say, Creative Cafe. So again, we were looking, and again, this was done in partnership, so working with the football club, the rugby club, a basketball club, local community centres to understand where we felt there was a need for physical activity. There was also working with the dementia homes. What we understood was obviously people loved the reminiscence, and very quickly sport and Coventry were 2 probably real key things that people love to talk about in the dementia homes and in the community, people with dementia. So we launched Sporting Memories, working with Dave Moorcroft. We brought together famous sporting people or famous Coventry people into a room. They'd be interviewed, and it was just lovely. People were able to go back down memory lane and have conversations over a cup of tea and a bacon sandwich. And I think one of the success stories of Sporting Memories is that in that room, in that moment of time, when there are 45 people sitting in there, because of the reminiscence, everyone's on an equal par because the conversation is enjoyed by everybody. So we could mix tables up with people not suffering with dementia and some of our dementia friends, and everyone was able to have great conversation. Sporting Memories has actually evolved now from the members. As I say, there's a regular 45 to 50 attendees, and we constantly touch base with them to understand is there any more we can be doing. So we've looked at how we can link that to becoming more active. So not just about them making their way to us and sitting in a room, but we now do that where they can engage with an activity. They've been on trips, we've done quizzes. So again, a really successful piece of work, and they meet once a month. The Community Activation Fund was an element of the money that we set aside for to commission out to organisations across the city who actually put in a fund application for it. And there was 4 successful organisations, mostly from the north of the city, that did put in to be able to extend the offer of what we were already doing. So some of our challenges, I'm sure you recognise them all. Initially, it was the outbreak of illness and further lockdowns. We very much felt like we'd start on a real positive way down the project, and then there'd be another lockdown. And again, that would change people's mindsets about getting them back out. And also illnesses. That was also a huge factor. The weather conditions, my goodness, whether it's too hot or it's too cold or it's wet, this massively impacts what decisions older people make about what they're doing on that day. So we really had to understand and become weathermen, weather girls. Again, travel, this is something we really need to think for the future of the project and the sustainability around older people accessing, because travel and transport are huge issues with being able to get older people out and about. The way we market and communicate, we were in the last presentation, there was someone mentioned around digital inclusion, and it's a massive thing. How you market to older people is probably not the way that we generally market at the moment with the power of social media. Not everybody, because I appreciate there are older people on social media, but it has been a challenge how we get to the right people. And then their daily routine, again, lunch is at 12 o'clock and it's staying at 12 o'clock. So they really were challenges, that the team had to understand. And I think this is what has been one of the real successes of the project, is that we have spent the time understanding older people and understanding these challenges. So when we do plan and put things together, we know straight away what our barriers are going to be, so we can prevent. Okay, so care homes, the impact of care homes has been absolutely huge. It's increased mobility, and again, it's not about increasing mobility, getting everyone out participating in tennis or walking football. It's about getting those that actually had lost the confidence to even step foot out of their flat and getting them doing orienteering around their facilities. It's built confidence, the confidence, bringing them out, making new friends. We have care homes working together, so visiting each other. So that has, established friendships, which builds on confidence. Obviously, the increase in activity levels has been the main aim, and slowly we are doing that. Biggest one for me, social connections. If socially we can get people out in a social context, that will only build on enabling people to become more active. Taking ownership, big part of the project is about them owning the activity plan. We don't make the plan and drop it in. We sit with them and they add, they talk about what they'd like to do, what they used to like doing. And again, we try and build confidence in getting them back into some of those activities. Talked about friendships, intergenerational links. It's the fairly new part of the project, but each care home or setting is established with a younger person's, either a school or an association. And there's a great partnership between Walsgrave Primary and Marsh House, where they've even adapted their sports day to enable older people to participate and be part of that. Everything they do now includes has an older people element to it, and they've managed to maintain great relationships with Marsh House, enabling older people to come and listen to children read, or just coming in to be part of the audience to celebrate in some of their assemblies. The community impact, again, has been great. A different group of older people. Sadly, Ken Brown passed away with this year, but he was a massive part of Sporting Memories, and seeing the impact it had on him, being able to come and feel comfortable and confident and actually valued was real impact for me. The walking netball over at Moat House was, again, a group of local ladies that just joined the group, and over the year what we were noticing was that when we had to cancel because the coach was unable to attend or was on annual leave, it opened up conversation about them wanting to be upskilled so they could deliver. So we didn't have to cancel sessions. So 4 of those older people became, they went on a training course and they are now delivering, and that session is now extended over to the Excel Leisure Centre. So there are now other sessions happening also. And that has only seen those sessions grow. I've already talked about the Community Activation Fund. Again, that was reaching, what was really successful about that was it reached some of our community in the Solihull area of Coventry, which was an area that we probably naturally were struggling to engage with. So that opened up additional opportunities for us to work with other organisations and meet new older people. Walking Rugby was a very quick example of how, you know, never to give up when trying to get something going. It took a little while. You know, we had a core interest of maybe 4 people and we had to keep going. And eventually that became a very social group. So I think there's now sort of 15 to 20 people attending, but they have a social activity alongside that, which again is success of that programme. And then seated exercise class at the Haggard Centre, and that again came from a group of older ladies that said they just wanted to be able to go out and do something low impact, something, you know, that just got them moving, and that again was a successful class. What's next? I guess some of this is around the challenges and what we do want to think about moving forward. I'll quickly go through some of them. So we wanted to start somehow a newsletter that just shared with everybody, sort of new people and our existing people that we work with, what's going on. The Memory Box project, again, this is something that wouldn't necessarily need an instructor to lead, but could be self-led within the care settings. Community Connectors programme, this is about upskilling a confident older person who generally takes the lead in the care home to be, again, you know, on an additional day, they could be doing more and not always waiting for that activity leader to come in. Exploring sustainable travel, you know, I think it's something we've really all got to look at, is how we, you know, enable older people to get out and to access things easier without huge costs or huge challenges to get that transport. Talked about digital inclusion. We also know through some insight that a lot of older people miss out on the swimming. And again, mobility problems makes them lose confidence about accessing swimming. So we want to be really innovative for how we use the wave and the wave pool, which is, again, you know, people don't necessarily have to be in swimwear, they can be paddling, they can be in pool chairs. So it's something we want to explore as well. Language exchange, the newest coordinator of the project is from Romania. And what he's brought to it is understanding the challenges in Coventry for people where English isn't the first language. So he's at the moment exploring how we connect with older people who are isolated just through language. Sporting Memories on tour, again, at the moment there's 1 session a month. Again, we know that there are lots of people who would love to attend, but again, for whatever reason can't. So how can we make it online, or how can we take it out on tour to people that would really benefit from it but can't access it? Obviously evaluation of impact, but also future funding and sustainability, which is something we're on at the moment.
Yeah, just in terms of future funding, we are just looking at the moment around. Our concern with the programme is we want it to be sustainable longer term, but our feeling is if we move away from the care home settings and some of the community work we're doing too quickly, the programme could really quickly end, because we haven't quite built the skill set and sustainability within all of those settings for it to continue in the way it is with our kind of assistance and guiding it. So we are at the moment preparing some external funding applications to go in through December for some sustainability for the programme, looking into 2024 and 2025. So we're hoping that we'll be successful with some of those applications for the continuation of the scheme. Happy to take any questions on that. I'll stop sharing my screen now. So I guess over to you guys.
Just a question from me in terms of the age range of participants. Like, what was the span? Like, what was the oldest person you had, or kind of what were the biggest surprises really of the kind of the biggest like impacts on individuals?
Interestingly, I find it's the older people. So the oldest is 102 and the youngest is 53 who engage in the project. I think the ones that have really, I think, engaged and grown with the project are those over the age of 80. I think the challenge still in the people that we've come across and met is that 55 to 70. And we probably are in the types of settings that we're in, they are, you know, they've probably all got challenging backgrounds and challenging personal circumstances. So it's how we work with those, I guess.
Thank you on that. And I think just if I can put my oar in again, I think so in terms of what Muir spoke to, I think there's some really cool examples out of the projects that you've been delivering of, like, not just the physical health, as Muir would say, but like the cognitive and the emotional health as well, and how we're keeping people engaged on that. So yeah, I think just thank you so much for sharing from our side. It's really interesting, and I think it's really useful. And what we'd hope to create is that we can see more of these examples. So that Brian has already shared an example of what he's been doing. Wendy and Steve, you just shared a lot about what you're doing. And I think one of the longer term things that we're desperate to do really is to showcase and tell the stories of like projects that doesn't matter how big or how small that are making the difference to people. So more of these, I think would definitely love to hear. So I guess this is kind of something that we've recently launched. I think for us, having heard all those messages and some fantastic speakers, I think there's still something that we want to be able to do about that. And what we're looking to do really is pilot a bit of a fund to make it available for people. And I guess today's going to be an opportunity to talk through that fund and hopefully answer any questions that people have. So just quickly, what we're going to cover is why we've kind of brought this fund out. Admittedly, probably Muir's talked to a lot of that already. How much is available, who can apply, and how to apply. I have a tendency to talk quite quickly, so if I don't make any sense, please someone just come off mute and tell me to slow down, shut up, or go back. Please just tell me. So kind of in terms of the purpose of the fund, we're really looking at working with clubs, groups, organisations who want to provide opportunities that enable people to be active, especially over the winter and into next year, supporting them to kind of live well and encourage that active ageing. So we've heard lots of examples today. That isn't the definitive list of things that you can do, and there's definitely bits and pieces we've already heard, and even Brian's example speaks to that. There are ways in which that you can do that in your place and in your, you know, at a very local level. We want to hear from you on that. So for us, we're really looking for projects that incorporate physical activity into either existing provision. Brian, I'm going to keep talking about you, but as Brian said, like building it around that lunch club, that's an existing thing that takes place, and physical activity has kind of been embedded into that or bolted on. Or, you know, you've got a community space and you don't currently do a particular project that you could do. So those are kind of the two kind of real things that we're really looking for. In terms of priority groups and who we're really keen for this program to support, looking at people with long-term health conditions, people with disabilities, people from lower socioeconomic groups and culturally diverse communities. That isn't to say that we won't fund projects outside of that, but they, when as we touch to the application process later, like they will score favourably in our review process. So that's kind of who we're targeting and why we're targeting it. What we can fund, so kind of what we can cover. I think before I do that, so the fund, this current fund is up to £2,000 in terms of what you can apply for and what we can fund. So whether that be equipment hire or purchase to help you deliver activities, kind of the coach kind of delivery costs of coach delivering a project or their expenses, facility hire, that promotion, publicity, that marketing to people, staff costs, volunteer expenses. We can't fund something that's already salaried. It would have to be additional cost to that. We couldn't just contribute to someone's salary. Transport and travel costs or insurance costs to help in the delivery of the activity, and workforce qualification or training. So if that's a coaching qualification or some kind of workforce training, then we're definitely keen to build that in, because I think we recognise that kind of, I guess, coaching costs can mount up quite quickly, and if we're constantly applying for coaching fees over and over again without trying to train any workforce ourselves, we're always going to be in that kind of vicious cycle of chasing money to deliver an activity. So kind of, again, something that we look quite favourably on is projects that have got a view on sustainability or how we can potentially sustain it. What I also want to include in here is Muir touched on it slightly, and Brian mentioned that he's kind of been on the course. So successful applications will also receive some training codes to access the online Living with Experts training, which kind of talks in a lot more detail about that, I guess, that presentation that Muir gave. And hopefully, I feel like it works in a bit of a cascade training, kind of, so to speak, that kind of you go and learn. You take that 12-week online learning program, and then you're confident to go and tell other people or advocate or champion for that. And we're going to make available kind of a course for kind of, we class it as a practitioner course. So for ideally people like yourselves who are responsible for the activity being delivered, we're also going to make available, I guess I'd describe it like a participant course. So the Learning with Experts course is actually 2 that you can kind of take part in. So what we're hoping is that we can train people who are going to deliver the activity, and they can cascade the message, which will be superb, but also train some of the people who are accessing the activity or the delivery, so that not only can they enjoy the delivery of the program that you're delivering, but also that they can kind of empower themselves with the knowledge. And I guess what we're really looking for there is that we can take some of that learning, and like I said, this is a pilot in terms of how we fund it. And we want to get some learning back from people about their experiences, both in taking part in the activities that we fund, but also people's kind of experiences of the training as well. We've made a few courses available before, and they have been a success, and we're hoping to make some more available. So for us to kind of help kind of make the case to make more courses available, we'd love to hear from people about how they've enjoyed the course or what they've thought about the course, and how we can kind of, I guess, get that message spread wider. In terms of who can apply, so community sports clubs, organisations with a constitution, you can apply without if you're an unconstituted sports club or organisation, but there will be some additional due diligence that we would have to work through with you should you be successful to apply. Registered community amateur sports clubs, registered charities, local authorities and community interest companies can apply. I think from us, we really, really want to target people and groups and organisations who work with those priority groups, and that's irrespective of whether you've delivered sport or physical activity before. I think you're not necessarily looking for, I mean, maybe we'll find them, but we're not looking for the next David Beckham with a program. We're looking for people to help people be physically active and kind of improve their physical, emotional, cognitive health. So if you're a group that works with potentially like older people or see older people quite a lot, albeit not deliver lots of sport and physical activity, we'd really love to hear from you. Some great examples of that would be warm hubs, like organisations that really fantastic places that people go to, and we've seen some real key success around kind of embedding physical activity into that provision as well. So we'd really love to hear from you. How to apply, there's an application form available online. That link to that application will be sent in a follow-up to this webinar, kind of accompanying the recording. There is a paper copy available upon request, and there's an email address on the next slide that if you needed a paper copy, we could provide that to you. The deadline for the applications is the 15th of December 2023, where the project will then be reviewed by us as a team. Any of that due diligence around organisational setup will be completed, and we'll keep applicants notified of the progress of their application as well, so you'll know. And in terms of timescales, and it doesn't, and I guess the projects need to be completed by next December. I'm conscious that like £2,000 may sound like a project that can last 12 months, depending on how you deliver a project. It might be a project that's 12 weeks. The crucial bit is it's delivered by the end of December 2024. But you've got that flexibility to deliver. Obviously, the more we can deliver, the better. Also realistic about the amount of money that is available in this round of funding. Well, then, as with all of our funds, there'll be an element of monitoring and evaluation. Hopefully, people who've engaged with our funding before would vouch for it. It's not too onerous in terms of the M&E that we ask for, but it ultimately again helps us tell the story about the impact, the learnings from projects that you've delivered, the successes and all the bits and pieces that come with delivering projects. And we have got a Moving Stories campaign where we love to hear case studies of how people have used physical activity to improve their lives in all manners of ways. So anyone who comes through this kind of work, and we'd love to tell those stories. So it's not to check up on you, it's actually to celebrate the amazing work that you're all doing, and that really is how we approach these things. So I guess on that point, like all that information, it will be available on the same website as the application form. This obviously webinar is recorded and will be available as well, so you'll be able to kind of refer back to that. I guess in short, from me, just a thank you. We're slightly ahead of time really, but I want to massively just thank everyone for jumping on today, and then just really open the floor for any questions. Really, I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and if anyone has any questions.
Hi, just a quick question on the funding. Does it have to be physical activity, or can it be social activity that potentially could lead to physical activity?
Great question. I think we would, from our perspective, we'd like to see some physical activity element to it. So I think if it's how loose the connection is, I think would be a conversation. Okay. But ultimately, I guess that's what we're here for, is to have the conversations. So yeah, I definitely don't see it as just send your application off and it's going to get like homework marked yes, no. Kind of, definitely keen to engage in that dialogue. So
okay, thank you.
Judy.
Hi Jordan, thank you. Yeah, I've just recently started helping a group that's long-standing in North Warwickshire with a particular client group. They've been going quite a few years but have not gone down the funding stuff before. They've been doing all sorts of things to try and keep themselves going, and so I've sort of introduced them. Is it all right if I help them to apply? But obviously the application you will probably recognise because it will be written by me with the committee there, but the activity would be taking place in North Warwickshire with a particular group. But it's all right if I hold their hand and help them to do the monitoring, etc., etc. They are constituted. It's just they've not even thought or realised they could qualify for some of these fundings. So they're brand new to this world, and they're a great group, and I'm inspired by them and the particular clients that they support. So that would be my first thing. And also they do a really lovely seated exercise to music that I've seen. So I think I would be encouraging them to expand on that because it's very popular. So does it have to be a brand new activity, or can it be an expansion on something that they've already realised?
So answer in order of the questions. First one, I think if they need some help in applying, and if you're able to give them that help, then I don't see an issue in you helping and supporting them to apply for the funding. I think we've probably learned, if anything, over the last kind of 12 months, there's a number of groups who would benefit from funding but have no experience applying for any, and that could be a daunting part of the process. So yeah, I don't see that being an issue. In terms of the project, if it helps get more people physically active as an existing project, but if we're just gonna fund the same people continuing, probably not going to be an amazing project. If it's helping more people access a program that's already really popular, we can get more people active, then yeah, I think that would be something that we'd
just as a follow-up, the community it serves is in North Warwickshire, so it's not culturally diverse, and it's a particular interest group because it's people with Alzheimer's, dementia, and more importantly their families and carers. But they're not going to be culturally diverse because of the particular part of the borough that we're talking. So that presumably isn't a barrier for them.
No, we're not oblivious to the. I guess we're well aware of the demographics of our place, and each locality represents a different challenge.
Yeah.
What we do know, especially
their issue, as you would know, is transport and travel.
Yeah,
so,
especially
because of those villages in North Warwickshire. So we might focus on that to enable more people to attend a very thriving, lively group who think that they've got to shave their heads in order to raise funding for things that they do. And I said, stop shaving your heads. We can find you funding in different ways, And I'm very much a pensioner myself, Jordan, you know that, and I think the days of shaving our heads probably gone, but there are all sorts of things that they can do, and it will expand if we can get more people from the villages.
Yeah, no, that's 100% the case. And
okay, thank you.
Totally noted the point around the kind of
I'll chat them up. Thank you.
Cultural diversity, but definitely in terms of an aging population, I think it's about 25% of North Warwickshire is kind of over the age of 65. So we're in terms of funding for a place that wouldn't
brilliant. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, well, a couple of things here actually. One's to say thank you. We have received help from Think Active, and we've had a very good partnership with them. I see Rhiannon's smiling face again. It's good to see you again, Rhiannon.
It's lovely to see you too, Brian.
Yeah, it's I welcome this kind of thing. Judy, I don't know whether what these people do is a memory club, but if it is, really ask them to get in touch with us, because if we can help them, we will help them as well, because that's again, we have a certain element of our people with early onset dementia, and it is a particular problem, and it has to be faced in a different way to the normal. Physical exercise isn't out. It's just more difficult to incorporate. Please get in touch with us and let's see what we can do to give you some help.
So you're all right if Jordan or Rhiannon shares your details? Yeah.
Absolutely, no problem at all. Yeah.
I'll make an email introduction after this.
Well, are you based in Atherstone, Judy?
Miss Jordan, Brian.
Yeah, but it's just 5 minutes down the road. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah, that'll be good. I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
It was just really to say thank you, Jordan. Appreciate everything that you're doing, and you know very well you're going to be hearing from me about the fund anyhow. I think that goes without saying, but thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it, and let Muir know we will do a few interviews. We can record them on the iPad, and if they're any use, then he's welcome to them.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Brian. I'll definitely pass that on. Sometimes I think Muir will come and do the interviews himself. I don't want to hold him to that, but he's definitely keen to learn what's going on. So
he'd be most welcome. That's as would any of you. You'd all be welcome. Come and see us, even if it's only for a bacon sandwich and a cup of coffee.
That's an offer you can't refuse.
You'll be busy next week, Brian.
Many thanks.
Well, is there any more? Thank you for that, Brian and Judy. Is there any more questions before we kind of round to a close?
I did have a question from earlier, which someone you mentioned was he uses an Active 10 app. I've not heard of that before. We work with Reablement for Warwickshire, so we do up to 6 weeks with people who are typically over 70 when we help people become independent again, but it might be something to sort of signpost them to use after our service is finished. So I wrote that down. I just thought I'd ask what that actually is.
I've not come across it too much myself. I think my limited knowledge of the app is it kind of records people's walk-in without even knowing, which kind of tracks your steps, helps you set goals and things like that. I think it's in the suite of kind of like the Couch to 5K and the NHS apps, but I will try and get some more information and circulate that around in the follow-up. But it's definitely interesting to learn some more about, Kirsty.
Okay, perfect. And also, do you have any sort of reading material or newspapers that we might be able to gain access to that we could pass on to our customers as well? Because of course some people do prefer just to have that little booklet or leaflet that we can leave that they can read at their own time, rather than also having the access to the internet and things like that.
It's a great question. I think we may have some leaflets left that we can give out. It is on that kind of digital exclusion, inclusion, people who can access online and not. It is something that we are actively looking at producing some resources that people can use as either conversation starters or tools to kind of have at home that kind of encourage a conversation around physical activity, or may even provide some suggestions of how people can be active.
Yeah, because we have a lot of customers who come to us mostly because of falls, and then that knocks their confidence, and also they might be recovering from injury. So trying to encourage somebody to be more active and possibly go back to the activities they used to do can be incredibly hard in the short space of time that we have. So we have information that we can provide to them or provide to family. It will just help with them when we sort of taken the step back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so we're looking at, and Kirsty, maybe we can pick that up as a conversation as well afterwards about how we, if what we've got in mind is helpful to what you think would be useful. Because I think what we're keen to avoid is that we just create things and just throw them out to people. We could definitely keen to lean on the people who kind of access, are on the front line and kind of working with people who we're trying to help be active again. So yeah, let's pick that up. I think that probably rounds everything up. I think from my perspective, could I just say a massive thank you on behalf of myself and Think Active for everyone jumping on today and listening. Thanks to the presenters as well, to Muir, to Wendy and Steve. Really appreciate your time jumping on. What we will have coming up soon is we will have a December newsletter around Live Longer Better, which will have a bit of a reflection of this, have a bit of a look forward to what training is going to come up in the future. I know it was mentioned a couple of times by different people. We are looking to have a conference in late Feb, early March. So information will be coming out very soon for that as well. So hopefully lots more we can do. And if we can connect this network, as Muir said, and bring the system together of people who are trying to help people live longer better and share learning, share really great examples, and if we can help along the way with some physical activity messaging, then that's how we can affect this system. So one last thank you from me. Thank you everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day, and yeah, hopefully I'll speak to you soon. And I hope you've all got my email address. Please do reach out. Can't hear enough from people. We'd love to hear more from you and what you're doing. So thank you everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Have a great rest of the week and a great weekend.